Hello and welcome everybody to another episode of Books and Bytes. Today, we're diving into Meditations, the personal reflections of Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius. Now, you might be thinking, okay, an emperor's diary, is this going to be like a dry history lesson? But trust me, this book is anything but boring. It's basically Marcus Aurelius wrestling with these, like, profound philosophical questions while running the entire Roman Empire. Talk about multitasking.
What makes meditations so fascinating is that it offers us this glimpse into the mind of a leader, grappling with these universal human challenges. Aurelius wasn't just writing for himself, he was engaging in a dialogue with his own soul, seeking wisdom and self-improvement.
Right, and the crazy thing is, he was doing this while leading one of the most powerful empires in history. I mean, can you imagine trying to, conquer barbarians and balance the budget?
Yeah.
While also pondering the meaning of life. It's mind-boggling.
It really is. And that's why this book resonates with people even today. The challenges Aurelius faced, dealing with difficult people, making tough decisions, staying grounded amidst chaos, those are things we can all relate to, regardless of our job titles.
Okay, so before we get too deep into the nitty-gritty, can you give us a quick overview of the main themes of the book, just so we have a roadmap for our deep dive?
Absolutely. Meditations is steeped in Stoic philosophy, which emphasizes virtue, reason, and living in harmony with nature. Throughout the book, Aurelius reflects on seeking wisdom, accepting what he can't control, focusing on the present moment, and acting for the common good. These ideas intertwine throughout his reflections, offering a framework for living a meaningful and fulfilling life.
Got it. So it's like a self-help guide for emperors and everyday people alike. Now let's actually dive into the text itself. Where does Aurelius begin this philosophical journey?
Well, right from the start. In Book 1, we see Aurelius expressing deep gratitude for the people who have shaped his character and his thinking. He actually name drops mentors and family members, highlighting the qualities he admires in each of them.
He's like a name dropper from ancient Rome. But I get it. We're all shaped by the people we surround ourselves with. Who are some of the figures that stand out to you?
One is Rusticus, who taught Aurelius the importance of simplicity and clarity in writing. This might seem like a minor detail, but think about it. Even back then, clear communication was crucial.
Wow, that's so true. In today's world, with information overload and constant distractions, being able to communicate clearly and concisely is more important than ever. It's like Aurelius is giving us a timeless communication tip.
Exactly. And then there's Apollonius, from whom Aurelius learned to value freedom of will and to prioritize reason above all else. This emphasis on reason is a cornerstone of Stoic philosophy, and it's something that runs throughout meditation.
It's like he's saying, don't let your emotions run the show. Use your logic and your reasoning to make decisions and navigate challenges.
Precisely. Aurelius believed that by cultivating our rational faculties, we can gain control over our thoughts and actions, leading to a more tranquil and virtuous life.
It's like he's giving us a blueprint for emotional resilience.
Yeah.
Something we could all use a little more of in our modern lives.
Right, absolutely. And what's interesting is that Aurelius doesn't just focus on learning from positive examples, he also reflects on negative role models, people whose behavior he wants to avoid. There's this passage about observing a tyrannical ruler, where he talks about how envy, duplicity, and hypocrisy were evident in the man's actions.
It's like he's saying, hey, pay attention to the bad examples too. You can learn just as much from what not to do as you can from what to do.
Exactly. And that's such a valuable lesson. We often focus on finding positive role models. But sometimes the most powerful lessons come from observing negative behavior and making a conscious choice to act differently.
So it's about being mindful of the influences around us.
Yeah.
And choosing our own path, even if it means rejecting the bad examples we might encounter.
Precisely. It's about cultivating self-awareness and making intentional choices about who we want to become. And that leads us nicely into Book 2, where Aurelius delves deeper into this idea of self-reflection and inner transformation.
All right, let's head into Book 2 then. What new insights does Aurelius offer us in this section?
Well, one of the most striking passages in Book 2 is this image of throwing away books and despising the flesh. Now, before you think Aurelius is advocating for some kind of extreme asceticism, it's important to understand the context.
Yeah, I was going to say, throwing away books, that doesn't sound very philosophical.
Hmm.
So what's the real meaning behind this seemingly radical act?
It's a metaphor, of course. Aurelius is using vivid imagery to emphasize the importance of detaching from material possessions and focusing on what's truly essential, virtue and reason. He's not literally telling us to get rid of all our belongings or to hate our bodies.
So it's more about a mental shift than a physical purge.
Exactly. He's challenging us to question our attachments, to examine what truly brings us happiness and fulfillment. Are we clinging to things that ultimately don't matter? Are we letting our desires control us? These are questions that are just as relevant today as they were in Aurelius's time.
It's like he's saying, don't get caught up in the superficial stuff. Focus on building your character, on living a life of virtue and purpose.
Precisely. And this idea of focusing on what we can control is central to Stoic philosophy. It's about recognizing that we can't always control external events, but we can control our own thoughts and reactions.
That makes me think of that famous quote from Meditations. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength.
That's a perfect example. Aurelius is reminding us that true strength lies in our ability to choose how we respond to challenges, to maintain our inner peace even when the world around us is in turmoil.
It's like he's giving us a mental toolkit for dealing with the inevitable ups and downs of life. Instead of getting swept away by our emotions, we could use our reason to choose a more constructive path.
Exactly, and that leads us into Book 3, where Aurelius explores this idea of accepting what we can't control. In even greater depth, he starts to grapple with the nature of the universe and our place within it.
Okay, things are getting a bit more cosmic now. Let's dive into Book 3 and see where this philosophical journey takes us.
One of the most powerful quotes from Meditations comes from Book 3. This thou must always bear in mind, what is the nature of the whole, and what is my nature, and how this is related to that, and what kind of a part it is of what kind of a whole.
Okay, that's a mouthful. It sounds like he's laying out this cosmic puzzle. Can you help us unpack this a bit?
Absolutely. This quote goes to the heart of the Stoic understanding of our place in the universe. Aurelius is urging us to contemplate the interconnectedness of all things, to see ourselves as part of a larger divine whole.
So it's about understanding that we're not just isolated individuals, but rather like threads in the grand tapestry of existence.
Exactly. And once we grasp this idea, we can start to accept the things we can't control. We see that everything is part of a natural order, a flow of events that's bigger than ourselves.
It's like realizing that you're just one piece in a giant puzzle, and you don't get to choose where all the other pieces go.
That's a great analogy. And instead of resisting that reality, the Stoics encouraged us to embrace it, to find peace in knowing that we are part of something larger than ourselves.
It's a pretty profound shift in perspective.
Yeah.
It reminds me of that saying, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference.
Yes. That captures the essence of this Stoic principle beautifully. It's about recognizing our limits, accepting the things we can't control, and focusing our energy on what we can actually change, our own thoughts and actions.
So it's about choosing our battles wisely, focusing on what's within our sphere of influence.
Precisely. And this leads us to another key Stoic principle, the importance of virtue and living in accordance with nature. Throughout the book, Aurelius emphasizes that true happiness and fulfillment come from living a virtuous life, a life guided by reason and justice.
What does that look like in practice? I mean, how do you define virtue in a way that makes sense for everyday life?
Well, for the Stoics, virtue encompasses qualities like wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance. It's about acting in ways that are beneficial to ourselves and to society as a whole.
So it's not just about being a good person in a vague sense. There's a real emphasis on action, on making choices that align with these core virtues.
Exactly. And this is where the idea of living in accordance with nature comes in. For the Stoics, nature wasn't just about trees and rivers. It was also about the rational order of the universe, the principles that govern all things.
So living in accordance with nature means aligning yourself with this cosmic order, with reason and virtue.
Yes. It's about recognizing that we are part of this grand scheme and striving to live in a way that harmonizes with it. And for Aurelius as emperor, this meant ruling with justice and wisdom, always striving to act for the common good.
It's like he saw his role as emperor as a responsibility, a duty to serve something larger than himself.
Exactly. And that sense of duty is another key theme that runs throughout Meditations. Aurelius constantly reminds himself to act with integrity, to put the needs of the empire above his own personal desires.
It's a pretty inspiring model of leadership, right? To lead not from a place of ego or self-interest, but from a deep sense of responsibility and service to others.
Absolutely. And it's a message that resonates with us even today. We're often bombarded with examples of leaders who seem to prioritize power and personal gain over the well-being of those they lead.
It's refreshing to encounter a leader like Aurelius, who viewed leadership as a burden, a calling to serve something greater than himself.
Precisely. And this idea of service ties into another key Stoic principle, the interconnectedness of all things. The Stoics believe that we are all part of a web of relationships, and that our actions have ripple effects that extend far beyond ourselves.
So it's about recognizing that we're not isolated islands, but rather part of a larger social fabric.
Exactly. And this awareness should guide our actions. We should strive to act in ways that benefit not just ourselves, but also those around us, recognizing that our well-being is interconnected with the well-being of others.
It's like the saying, no man is an island. We're all in this together, and our actions have consequences for others.
Precisely. And this leads us to another crucial theme in meditations, the ephemeral nature of life, and the importance of living in the present moment. Aurelius constantly reminds himself and us that time is fleeting, that everything is in constant flux.
He uses some pretty vivid imagery to illustrate this point, right? Like the image of time as a river, constantly flowing, carrying everything away.
That's a powerful one. He also compares life to a stage play, where we each have our assigned roles to play before exiting the stage. These metaphors emphasize the impermanence of all things, urging us to make the most of the present moment.
It's a message that's especially relevant in today's fast-paced, hyper-connected world, where it's so easy to get caught up in this endless stream of information and distractions and lose sight of what truly matters.
Absolutely. Aurelius reminds us to slow down, to savor the simple things, to appreciate the beauty of the present moment before it slips away.
It's like he's saying, don't get so caught up in chasing after tomorrow that you forget to live today.
Exactly. And this emphasis on mindfulness and present moment awareness is something that resonates deeply with modern psychology and self-help philosophies.
It's amazing how these ancient Stoic ideas continue to offer timeless wisdom for navigating the challenges of modern life.
It really is. And as we move into the later books of meditations, we see Aurelius grappling with these themes in even more depth, offering us further insights into the art of living a good life.
So as we delve deeper into meditations, do these themes continue to evolve and intertwine?
They absolutely do. And as Aurelius continues to reflect, his wisdom becomes even more potent. For example, he keeps coming back to this idea of the mind as a sphere.
You know, I remember us touching on this before, but I still find it intriguing. What's the deeper significance of this metaphor for Aurelius?
It represents the Stoic ideal of inner peace and tranquility. You see, the Stoics believed that true happiness wasn't dependent on external circumstances, but rather on the state of our own minds.
So it's not about what happens to you, but how you react to it, that whole control what you can idea.
Exactly. When the mind is undisturbed by external events, when it's aligned with reason and virtue, it remains perfectly formed, like a sphere.
Ah, I'm starting to get it. So the more we let external events control our emotions, the more our inner peace gets distorted, like denting that perfect sphere.
Precisely. It's a powerful visual representation of the Stoic goal of achieving inner tranquility, regardless of the chaos swirling around us.
That makes a lot of sense. And it's a challenge we all face, right? Staying centered and calm when life throws us curveballs.
Absolutely. And Aurelius provides some really practical advice for how to cultivate this inner strength. One of the key tools he advocates for is negative visualization.
Now that sounds a bit counterintuitive. Isn't the idea of positive thinking all the rage these days?
It might seem that way, but the Stoics had a different approach. They believed that by contemplating negative outcomes, we could better appreciate what we have and prepare ourselves for the inevitable challenges that life throws our way.
So it's like a mental exercise in resilience.
Yeah.
Like thinking, okay, what's the worst that could happen? And realizing it's not actually the end of the world.
Exactly. And Aurelius actually takes this practice quite far. In one passage, he reflects on the deaths of those in Augustus's court, reminding himself of the fleeting nature of life and the inevitability of death.
Wow, that's pretty intense. It seems like he's staring death right in the face, almost welcoming it.
It might seem morbid to us, but for Aurelius, it was a way to gain perspective, to detach himself from the fleeting pleasures and pains of this world.
So by contemplating our own mortality, we can actually live more fully in the present moment.
Precisely. It's a paradox, but it's at the heart of Stoic wisdom. By accepting the things we can't control, including death, we can free ourselves to focus on living a virtuous and meaningful life, right here, right now.
That's a powerful message. And it ties back to that earlier idea of living in accordance with nature, right? Recognizing that death is a natural part of the cycle of life.
Exactly. And this acceptance frees us from fear and allows us to embrace life fully, with all its joys and sorrows.
I'm seeing how all these Stoic ideas really do weave together, creating a framework for living a life of purpose and resilience.
They do. And it's not just about abstract philosophy. Aurelius constantly emphasizes the importance of putting these principles into action.
He has that famous line, waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be one.
That's a perfect example. He's urging us to move beyond intellectualizing and to actually embody these virtues in our daily lives. It's a call to action, a reminder that true wisdom is found not just in thinking, but in doing.
So Meditations isn't just a book to be read, but a guide to be lived.
Precisely. And that's why it continues to resonate with readers centuries later. It offers timeless wisdom for navigating the challenges of being human, for finding meaning and purpose in a world that can often feel chaotic and unpredictable.
This has been an incredible deep dive. It's amazing how a book written almost 2,000 years ago can still feel so relevant to our modern lives. Is there any final thought you'd like to leave our listeners with?
I think Aurelius himself sums it up best. The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts.
Powerful words. So it's all about cultivating those inner virtues, those qualities of mind that allow us to navigate life's ups and downs with grace and resilience.
Exactly. And remember, this isn't a passive pursuit. It takes effort and practice to cultivate these virtues, but the rewards are immeasurable.
A huge thank you to you for guiding us through this deep dive into meditations. It's been a truly enlightening journey. And to our listeners, thank you for joining us. We hope you've gained some valuable insights from this exploration of Stoic wisdom.